So I'd like to present to you a simple model of how cravings work. Addictions can be a very complicated thing, and I just want to present to you one part of addiction, which is the emotional reaction of having a craving, so that you can learn how to work with it and how to get through it. There's a great joy that we have when we have victories in self-control. And I think of self-control as being not so much about being free from bad habits as it is being free for living our ideals. Being free to be patient, being free to be understanding, being free to be healthy and loving and all these good things. To demonstrate how I sometimes work with cravings, I can tell you about a patient I had who came to me because he said he couldn't resist eating between meals. He had a particular fondness for peanut M&Ms and said that they were irresistible. So I had him the next time bring 2 packages of peanut M&Ms to the session and hold them in his lap. So we were doing this in the next session. He had the M&Ms in front of him, and I asked him, "Are you craving having one right now?" And he said, "Oh, very definitely." So I have a strong craving. Then I said, "Where do you feel it?" And that kind of took him back. And he started thinking, and I asked him, "Can you feel any kind of tension in your chest right now?" He said, "Yes, I can. I feel the kind of tension right there in the middle of my chest." So I suggested that he try to open up as fully as he could to that sense of the tension. And if you pay very close attention, you can feel the tension increase slightly as you inhale, and then relax as you exhale. And as he did that, he looked up in amazement and said, "It's going away." So did continue it for a few moments more, and it was gone. Then he had the peanut M&Ms in his lap, and the craving was gone. He said, "I'm not craving it right now." So then I suggested that he open up the package and let himself smell it, and the craving came back. And again, just pause, open up to the sensation of the craving, let him just have it there, feeling it move with the breath, and it went away. He said, "This is amazing. It's gone away again." Then I had him take out a peanut M&M and hold it in front. The craving came back. We did it again through the whole cycle. Just took maybe 30 seconds for that craving to go away. And then had him put it right up to his mouth so that he could be just about to eat it. It's interesting, at that moment my phone went off, and so I left the room to take the call, which I never do. But in this case it was good because I came back 2 minutes later and he was still holding it right in front of his mouth. And he said, "No craving." So then I took the other package and opened it up and started eating in front of him. And he said, "Okay, now the craving's back." And he processed it again until the craving was gone. And then I suggested that he throw away the M&M and not have any. The craving came back one last time, and he got through it. So he came back actually another time some weeks later and said that he had broken the habit of eating between meals. And it was easy. Once he could locate the craving and feel it, it then would run its course, just if he opened up mindfully to feel the craving. Now that's a very good description of what happens when we allow ourselves to feel a craving. At first it kind of goes up, and if we were graphing this, you would see that on a scale of 0 to 10, that the craving, if it was very strong, could get even to a 10. But when you really let yourself, practice feeling it, just trying to see, okay, allowing the craving to enter into your mind, the craving sensation starts to go down and down and down. It's like the more you try to feel the craving, the more surely it would go down. The more eager you would be to feel the craving, and the more you dedicate your whole attention to it, the more quickly it would go down. The curve would be then repeated the next time, a little bit, wouldn't get as high, and would go down in a similar way. And the next time, and the next time, until you'd see then the craving had extinguished itself. This in general is how behavioral therapy works for cravings. You're able to process them, and if you want to do it very efficiently, it is 2 steps really are needed. The first is you have to view the trial, where the craving comes, the temptation it presents, as a great opportunity. Try to see it as an opportunity for practice, an opportunity for learning. The second step is opening up to the sensation of the discomfort of the craving, so that you can feel the discomfort, which is really always a kind of tension, feel it fully, and if you can feel it move with the breath, slightly intensifying with inhale and then decreasing with exhale, it will run its course. This is really the virtue of patience. Patience has two parts to it. The first, changing your judgment of the trial so that you think of it in a new way. And you don't just see it as a threat, but you actually see it as an opportunity. The second part is more the material element of it, and that is actually feeling the pain of the discomfort. Patience necessarily produces habituation of the craving. Patience breaks all the vicious cycles that get going as you have a craving get strong, and then you get impatient with it, you want it to go away, so you give in to it, the fastest way to make it go away. And then it's fed, and next time it comes back stronger, and the next time it comes back stronger. So that vicious cycle is completely broken by patience. Again, the first part of patience is the judgment of the trial, so you can see it as a good thing. The second part of it is allowing yourself to fully feel the physical discomfort of the craving. And I always tell people the best place to feel that is in the chest. With patience, a person would never give in to any kind of vicious cycle. The only reason people act on cravings is because they're impatient with them. They want the craving to go away. If they were perfectly patient with the craving, it could come and go and not change their behavior at all. Patience allows us to let our behavior be guided by our ideals, our values, rather than by the cravings. So patience is what establishes really freedom from cravings. Now I'd like to just show you the neuroscience behind what patience is doing. If we look at the model of the brain again, we have the amygdala, which is the automated detector for opportunities for pleasure. And it's also the automatic detector for threats. So when the amygdala identifies a threat for pain or an opportunity for pleasure, it activates the whole lower cortex. That's called the limbic cortex. That limbic cortex is in charge of automation. So that means having impulses to act, having certain emotional reactions, and having even automatic thoughts that would give permission to act. On the other side, we have the medial prefrontal cortex. That's in charge of all deliberate behaviors. Part of that is the appraisal center, which is, you could say, responds to the deliberate assessment of opportunity or threat. So that if you judge something to be an opportunity, the appraisal center turns on, and that helps the whole medial prefrontal cortex to turn on. The other functions of the medial prefrontal cortex are abstract thinking, moral reasoning, seeing consequences to your actions, guiding your behavior according to ideals and values. So all these higher level features are what the medial prefrontal cortex does in us. The medial prefrontal cortex is also the part that gets activated by mindfulness. So we have in this upper cortex the whole kind of mindful, deliberate part of the brain, connected then very powerfully to the lower cortex, the limbic cortex, which is more mindless, more automated. Now, one unique thing to understand about how these relate is that when one turns on, the other half turns off. Or rather, when one turns up, the other turns down. So that if a person, let's say, is addicted to a drug and they see they have an opportunity to have that drug, the amygdala, the automated detector of opportunities, will notice that and then activate, lighting up that whole limbic cortex. The activation of the limbic cortex then goes through this connector, which is called the anterior cingulate cortex, and reaches in and then turns down the medial prefrontal cortex, which means that while the craving is strongly activated, the ability to think through consequences and act on ideals and engage in moral reasoning becomes more difficult. This is the phenomenon we call tunnel vision. So when tunnel vision is very strong, it's like the person loses sight of basic things. Maybe this has happened to you if you've gotten very angry about something, and in the fit of anger, it's hard to measure exactly what will be the consequences of your words. It's hard to measure your response carefully and to think through what's really the best way to react. So all of us know that it's better to let the anger pass, let your limbic cortex calm back down, restoring blood flow to your medial prefrontal cortex. Then you can deliberate better about what's to be done. So With mindfulness and a positive appraisal, you can always activate that upper cortex, allowing it to turn down then and calm down the limbic cortex. So if you first think of why this is a great opportunity for practice, it's an opportunity, for instance, when a strong craving is triggered, it's an opportunity to practice mindfully feeling the craving. Just framing it as some kind of opportunity already turns on your medial prefrontal cortex, so activating the appraisal center. If you then try to tune into the sensation of the craving, that mindfulness will activate the whole rest of the medial prefrontal cortex. That then reaches down and calms down the limbic cortex. And these really are the two parts of patience. Patience is having a positive judgment of the trial and fully opening up to the sensation of the discomfort. So what patience does is it can activate that upper cortex no matter what is happening in the lower cortex. In order to gain mastery then over cravings, we need to know how to protect that appraisal center so that you can continually be able to activate it and turn it on. Now, the two bad habits we have of shutting off our appraisal center, one is complaining and the other is dreading. You could also include regretting, so then you can say you have negative appraisals of the past and regretting, of the present and complaining, and of the future and dreading. It's very important then that people who suffer from cravings and continually act on them in an automated way with that sense of tunnel vision learn how to maintain that sense of positive appraisals. Keep that appraisal center turned on. And just being able to, one, notice when you're complaining and try to instead flip it into something to learn, something to practice. Try to notice even when other people are complaining. I think complaining is a kind of way that even like anxiety disorders and depression and other things can be transmitted among people. Because if you're complaining out loud, it's like you're reaching and turning off the appraisal centers of other people, making their amygdala then activate and be more triggerable. So we tend to, make each other more triggerable if we complain to each other. So it's much better to learn what to be grateful for, what to be content with, what good things are going on, and then how some particular trial or challenge can be an occasion for practice. So having a kind of growth mindset, so to see that challenge is a good thing. Challenge calls forth effort, and that's how we grow. So to be embracing challenges and having that positive attitude is a way of continually maintaining a positive appraisal. Even just having a habit of being cheerful, trying to maintain a kind of cheerful demeanor. That way, if you fall into complaining, you can feel the change in your body. And you realize, okay, now I need to reframe, try to see what ideal I can be living in this moment. You're trying to see, okay, how could I be more patient here, more generous here, more loving here, and then enter it with that. So we can always reapproach our work with that positive sense of trying to be living our highest ideals in it. And that would be then continually having a positive appraisal. The second thing is noticing when we're falling into dreading. Future trials are given power by a habit of dread. That dread, in a way, charges those situations in advance with negative appraisals. So that if you dread being tempted or somehow tested in one particular moment, you're actually giving cravings much more power when that moment arrives. That habit of negative appraisals in advance sets you up to have more powerful activation of the amygdala and the limbic cortex when the actual moment arrives. So many times, dread sets us up for these kind of trials. Instead, you want to catch yourself when you're dreading and then try to see how to look forward to it as an occasion of growth and practice. It's important that people never see the triggering of a craving as a bad thing. Cravings only get triggered when you have an opportunity for growth. The only way to reset a craving is by having it be triggered and not acting on it. That doesn't mean we have to go looking for ways to have a craving triggered. Usually they would get triggered kind of as we go about our life. But when they do get triggered, we can always look forward to it then as a chance to, one, see it as a good thing, see the good in it, and welcome the trial, and then two, try to feel the cravings, discomfort as fully as we can, and get through it. In some types of addictions, you can go, once you get through a particular wave of cravings, you might have a quiet period for a while. And it's like that craving got through the first wave, and then there's quiet for a while, and then you get bombarded with another wave of cravings. It's very important that people see that returning wave of cravings as a very good sign. It's almost like the craving circuit is getting starved, and at some point it needs reinforcement if your brain is going to keep it around. So when it's running out of its energy, needing reinforcement, then you start getting hit with a wave of cravings. It's a very good thing because it means it's just about to be broken. If people can look forward to those times where they might get bombarded momentarily, learn how to practice mindfulness during those times, and to keep their appraisal positive, then they can get through that with much more success. A third thing you can do to gain mastery over cravings is to learn to practice mindfulness at times when you don't have the craving. Regular mindfulness practice builds up the ability of your medial prefrontal cortex to stay online so that if a craving comes, you can more easily be mindful of the craving when it comes. Even something like 10 or 15 minutes a day of practice. And one way of getting that is with Headspace or some similar program where it gives you practice each day. Just 10 to 15 minutes of that would be enough to build up a person's resilience so that they can stay mindful then when the craving comes. If they find that when cravings are triggered, they still fall into automation and the tunnel vision still sets in, then maybe they would increase that daily dose of mindfulness practice until they start noticing the ability to stay mindful of the cravings while they're being triggered. So what we've talked about here is trying to exercise patience in the face of cravings. The first thing of patience is judging it to be a good thing. That means getting mastery over complaining and over dreading. The second part of patience is allowing yourself to fully feel the discomfort. Patience is a willingness to suffer that discomfort for the sake of an ideal, so that you can be patient in the midst of it. It means fully feeling the suffering. And mindfulness, the way I use it here, is simply your willingness to tune in to the sensation of the craving, to the sensation of the discomfort, and be present with it without trying to do anything to make it go away. So if a person then practices mindfulness in ways when they're not having the craving triggered, it's much easier for them to keep it online when the craving comes.